Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling the Battle of the Alamo.
Ah, the Alamo.
It's one of those stories everyone thinks they know, it's been told and retold so many times, movies, books.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Larger than life.
Right. But we're going beyond the myths.
Peeling back the layers.
Exactly. Like, why is this one battle still so powerful? Not just in Texas history, but like for the whole U.S., really.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Like how this event, this one place, it captures the imagination.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, just picture it. A handful of defenders, under 200, they say, up against thousands.
Yeah, thousands.
Holding out for almost 2 weeks. That's crazy.
Mm.
But before we get to the actual fighting, I feel like we got to understand the Alamo itself. I mean, it's not like it was built to be some super fortress, was it?
You're right. It wasn't purpose-built for war, no. The Alamo started as a mission.
Okay, a mission.
Yeah, a Spanish mission. One of 5, actually. Yeah, built way back in the early 1700s. The Spanish, they were trying to establish themselves in San Antonio.
Makes sense.
Converting the native people, and building a community, controlling the resources.
So the Spanish, they always had an eye for strategy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm guessing putting the Alamo right there, that was no accident.
Oh, absolutely not. It was at a crossroads. Several major highways, they all converged right at the Alamo.
So all roads lead to the Alamo.
Literally.
And
when they converted it from a mission to, well, more of a fortified compound, that made it a prime target.
So fast forward to 1836, right? The Alamo is now stuck in the middle of this much bigger fight, the Texas Revolution.
Right.
But hold on, the Texas Revolution, this wasn't just some like one-off event in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, no, not at all. It was part of like a whole wave of revolutions happening all across the Americas.
At the same time, wow.
Yeah, back then monarchies were being challenged, new republics were popping up, and Mexico itself, brand new nation, still trying to figure itself out, in just 12 years.
They had how many presidents? Like a revolving door.
Over 20.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Okay, so all this chaos going on in Mexico, did that directly affect what was happening in Texas?
Definitely. You had these competing visions for Mexico's future.
Okay.
Federalists, they wanted more power for the individual states, and then the centralists, they wanted a strong central government.
Huh. Kind of like those arguments going on in the U.S. back then, too.
Exactly. A lot of parallels. And then there was Santa Anna. Firmly a centralist, he wanted control.
Over Texas.
Over everything. So he starts enacting policies like the Militia Reduction Act, basically trying to limit access to guns.
Oh, so that's what lit the fuse.
Pretty much. It
Yeah.
made the tensions boil over, and that led to, well, rebellion.
So it wasn't just about Texas wanting to be its own thing. It was pushing back against Santa Anna, too.
Right.
And, of course, we've got to talk about slavery. It always seems to come up with the Texas Revolution.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. A lot of misconceptions about that. Some people think slavery was banned in Mexico then, but it wasn't.
It was still legal.
Yeah, which is important to remember. But the whole Texas, Mexico, U.S. triangle, the slavery debate definitely made everything even more tense.
It's wild how all these huge forces, revolutions, political turmoil, the fight over slavery, they all kind of crashed together at this one little mission in San Antonio.
It's true. They all converged at the Alamo. And to understand how we got to the siege, we have to look at what happened just before the lead-up.
So what were the key moments? Like, what really set things off?
Well, there are a few confrontations. But early on, one stands out, really symbolic, the come and take it cannon.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so Mexican forces, they tried to take back a cannon that they'd given to the Texans for defense.
And the Texians were like, no.
Basically, it became this rallying cry, a symbol of defiance.
Like, we're not backing down.
Exactly. Then you have the Battle of Bexar.
Okay.
5-day fight, brutal house-to-house stuff for control of San Antonio. The Texians won that too.
Showing they weren't messing around.
Exactly. They proved they could fight. But those victories, they came at a price, and they got Santa Anna's attention.
Uh-oh. That can't be good. I mean, Santa Anna, his reputation, let's just say it precedes him. So what kind of leader was he? Why did he personally come to Texas?
Well, Santa Anna was, he was a complicated guy, ambitious for sure. He'd been president of Mexico, on and off, general. But he was determined to keep Texas under his thumb.
Stubborn, huh?
And he was known to be ruthless, very ruthless.
Not the kind of guy you want to make angry.
No, not at all.
So with Santa Anna on the march, The Alamo suddenly becomes the most important place in Texas. Who are the big names on the Texian side at this point?
Well, you've got Davy Crockett, of course, frontiersman, legend. He'd only arrived in Texas a few weeks before the siege. And then there's Jim Bowie.
Wait, like the knife.
That's the one. Planter, well-educated, but also known as a fierce fighter.
So what drew these guys to Texas in the first place? Their motivations, it's always interesting to me.
Oh, they had their reasons, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Varied as their backgrounds. Well, Crockett, he'd lost a seat in Congress, disillusioned with U.S. politics, came to Texas for a fresh start. Bowie, though, he was more drawn to the opportunity.
Land, money, that kind of thing.
Maybe building a new life?
So you got these two larger-than-life figures, both ending up at this pivotal moment in history, at the Alamo.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Shakespearean play.
Yeah.
And they weren't alone, right? Other folks joined them.
Oh, tons of them. Farmers, ranchers, shopkeepers, everyday people willing to fight for what they believed in.
And let's not forget, the Alamo wasn't just soldiers, right?
Absolutely not.
Women and children, too, seeking refuge.
You're right. It was a community facing this, well, existential threat.
So the Alamo wasn't just some strategic spot. It was a symbol.
Absolutely. Hope, defiance, the Texians' will to forge their own path.
Which brings us to the siege itself. Santa Anna and his army are closing in. What was it like for those inside the Alamo as they waited?
I can't imagine. Outnumbered almost 10-1 and facing this well-equipped, determined army.
Just brutal.
For 13 days straight, constant bombardment, cannon fire, explosions.
Day and night. I bet the mental strain was just as bad as the physical danger.
Oh, I'm sure. They knew the odds.
But they still held on.
They did. Well, their courage, their determination, it's pretty amazing.
So we've got the scene set. The Alamo is fortified. The defenders are, well, they're ready. Santa Anna's coming. What happens next? So we left off with the Texians holed up in the Alamo, outnumbered, facing Santa Anna's army. What were some of the, tactical problems they had? Besides just having fewer men, I mean.
Well, the Alamo itself, even though it was fortified, it wasn't really designed to withstand a proper siege. I mean, it started as a mission, right? The walls were kind of low, not great protection from cannon fire, and they didn't have unlimited supplies.
Yeah.
Gunpowder, ammunition, all that. They had to ration it.
So even with all the willpower in the world, they were running out of time and options.
Yeah.
How did that final attack actually go down?
So March 6th, it's still dark, pre-dawn hours, and Santa Anna, he launches this surprise attack. Yeah, Mexican troops, they scaled the walls, just overwhelmed the defenders, and the defenders were exhausted by this point, you know.
I can only imagine. So what was the fighting like?
Brutal. Hand-to-hand, muskets, swords, I mean, probably even just fists at some point.
Chaos.
Total chaos. And, well, as brave as they were, they just couldn't hold out. Within, an hour and a half, it was over. The Alamo had fallen.
A tragic end.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, the Alamo became this symbol, that rallying cry, remember the Alamo.
Yeah.
But how did that actually turn into, military success?
You got to remember, the fall of the Alamo and other defeats, too. Goliad, where hundreds of Texians were executed. It wasn't just sadness, it was rage.
Fuel for the fire.
Exactly. People who'd been on the fence about joining the fight, they were all in now. Families, homes, their way of life, all threatened. And the memory of those who died at the Alamo, well, that pushed them forward.
So on to the Battle of San Jacinto. Just weeks later, this is the one that wins Texas its independence. How did that even happen? I mean, the Texians were still outnumbered.
Right. But a few things went their way. Sam Houston, the Texian commander, he was a smart guy, picked the battlefield carefully, and they had surprise on their side.
How so?
They attacked during siesta. Mexican army was totally caught off guard.
So good planning, plus a little luck.
And those Texians, they were fighting with everything they had, yelling, remember the Alamo, remember Goliad, as they charged. It was over in less than 20 minutes. Total rout.
Wow, decisive. And Santa Anna, he gets captured.
He does, and to get his freedom, he had to sign treaties recognizing Texas as independent. Crazy how it flips, right? The Alamo, a huge defeat, but it leads to the birth of the Republic of Texas.
Shows you how one event, even a terrible one, can change the course of history. But Texas as its own country, that didn't last too long, did it?
No, about a decade later, 1845, Texas gets annexed by the U.S., becomes the 28th state. But that annexation, oh boy, that really ticked off Mexico. Led straight to the Mexican-American War.
So the Alamo's shadow, it just kept hanging over things, even between the U.S. and Mexico. Crazy how these things ripple outwards. So what about the Alamo itself? After the battle, was it just abandoned?
Not at all. It's had a colorful life since 1836. It was a military HQ for a bit, a supply depot, even a general store at one point.
Weird to think about such an important place being used for everyday stuff. When did it become, the Alamo, the landmark?
It took time. Historians, preservationists, the people of Texas, they all pushed to recognize how important it was. Late 1800s, early 1900s, that's when the real effort to protect and preserve it got going.
It's like around that time, the Wild West was getting romanticized.
Yeah.
And the Alamo, this story of heroism, it fit right in.
Exactly. It became the symbol of the frontier spirit, standing up to overwhelming odds. But like we've been saying, the story's more complicated than just good guys and bad guys.
Yeah, motivations on both sides. And the legacy of the Alamo, people still debate it today.
Oh, for sure. And with any historical event, separating the truth from the myth, it's tough. There were conflicting stories, exaggerations, even outright lies that became part of the legend.
So even now, the Alamo still has some mystery to it.
Definitely. We still have questions. Archaeologists are finding new things all the time, looking for the defenders' remains, trying to piece together exactly what happened.
Pretty amazing that we're still learning stuff about it almost 200 years later.
That's what I love about history. Always changing, always evolving. As we find new evidence, our understanding of the past changes too.
Well, you've really brought the Alamo to life for us. From its start as a mission, its role in the Texas Revolution, all the debates around it, even the mysteries that are still being uncovered. What, to you, is the most fascinating part of it all? We've really gone deep on the Alamo, haven't we? From Spanish Mission to Texas Revolution battleground, all the different ways people see it, even those archaeology puzzles you were talking about. What for you is like the most interesting thing about the whole story?
I think it's how the Alamo has become this powerful symbol, you know. It's more than just bricks and mortar or battlefield. Different people see different things in it.
Right, and sometimes those are totally opposite things.
Exactly. For some, it's heroic resistance. For others, it's about, well, a darker side of history, colonialism, all that.
Which makes you think, how do these symbols, like the Alamo, how do they shape how we view the past? It can bring people together, but also divide them, right?
Absolutely. And that's the big question. How do we deal with all these different versions of the story? How do we reconcile those different perspectives?
It's like we're looking in a mirror, but the mirror's showing us history. Our own values and beliefs, they get mixed in with the past.
That's why we got to be careful. Engage with history critically, like you said. Question what we think we know. Look at things from different angles. The Alamo, it's not just a monument frozen in time. It's a story that people are still telling, still arguing about, still finding new meaning in.
So for folks listening, what should they walk away with? What should they be thinking about after this deep dive?
Keep asking questions. Keep digging. Look for the stories behind the symbols. If you can, go see the Alamo for yourself. Stand there, trying to imagine what it was like. Read those firsthand accounts, both Texian and Mexican. And you mentioned Colby's podcast, right? He's got some amazing episodes about all this.
Yeah, he does a great job. And it's important to remember, history isn't just dates and battles. It's about understanding who we are now and how we got here. The Alamo, with all its messiness and contradictions, it's a good example of that, I think.
It's all connected in the end. The choices we make, the values we hold, the legacy we leave behind.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for taking this deep dive into the Alamo with us. We hope you've learned something new and maybe even, started asking some new questions yourself. Until next time, everybody.